This video is all about formatting columns, and we're going to be in on page Word 84 out of the textbook. And formatting text in columns often makes the text easier to read. You can apply column formatting to a whole document, to a section, or to selected text. Columns command on the Page Layout tab allows you to quickly create columns of equal width and spacing, and to customize the width and spacing of columns. To control the way the text flows between columns, you can insert a column break, which forces the text following the break to move to the top of the next column. You can also balance columns of unequal length on a page by inserting a continuous section break at the end of the last column on the page. Now on step 1 on page 84, it tells us that we want to make sure the insertion point is in section 2. To do that, we have our insertion point here, and we see that there it is, section 2. It's in our status bar. Next, we're going to click on the columns button here. And in this case, this is in the page setup group, and now we're going to click on Right. And when we click on Right, notice that it makes the left-hand side of the column very thick and the right-hand side of the column kind of thin on there. And this is two columns of unequal width. The formatting of the text in the section 3 does not change at all, so you can notice that it's still in two columns of equal width. And now all the text is on 4 pages again. On step 2, it tells us we're going to select the headline, Spotlight on Japan, Visiting a Ryokan in the Land of Shoguns. So we're going to select this title right up here and the paragraph mark below it. So you want to choose all of this right here. Then next what we're going to do is we are going to go back up to our columns button here in the page setup group on the page layout tab, and we're going to click on 1. Now in this case you'll notice that we have inserted a new section break, which is a little bit different than how we've done it in the past. Because now what has happened is a continuous section break is added below the headline. The headline is formatted as a single column in its own new section, which is now section 3, and that is where the insertion point is located at. The newsletter now contains 4 sections with different column formattings in each of the different sections. Of course, you can change the width and spacing of these existing columns by using the columns dialog box or dragging the column markers on the horizontal ruler, which you can see if we go into a second section here, there is the column marker, and we can click and drag that left or right to change the width of the columns. But on here, this is where whenever you have text selected and then you make a change like for the columns on there, it's going to add in automatically a continuous section break. So make sure that your insertion point is now in section 3. And it tells us in step 3, we're going to scroll down, and now we're going to place our insertion point before malaria, a serious. So we're going to scroll down, and it's right underneath the traveler's corner. So we're just going to place our insertion point right before the word malaria. And this time we're going to click on the zoom level button here. So yours may say 52 or 59%, either one on that. We're going to click on that percentage on there, and that's going to bring up the zoom dialog box. And we're going to go ahead and click back in on the page with options button. And then we're going to click on OK. So now notice that it zooms in on where our insertion point is at. Next, we're going to go back and click on the breaks button again. And this time, we're going to go ahead and click on a continuous section break. Now notice that the section break is now over here. But it is actually inserted before that malaria headline. And the insertion point is in the new section, or section 5. We can tell that down here. In step 4, we're going to click on the columns button again. And on this time, we're going to click on the more columns down at the bottom of the list here. This brings up the columns dialog box. In step 5, we're going to click on 3. So notice that we can have 3 columns. Now you can change your number of columns this way as well, but we're going to click on the top right here on the preset where it says 3. Then we're going to click on the spacing down arrow. So here we have the width and the spacing, and we're going to click on this down arrow until it says 0.3. And that should happen when you click on it twice. Now notice that where it's automatically set, or it's in the preset, we've just changed the spacing a little bit on it, and the width is automatically adjusted as well. Next, we're going to select the line between the checkbox on there. So here's the line between, and this is the checkbox right here that we want to select. If you'll notice in the preview, without it, the columns are there, but there's nothing that really separates it except for some white space. When I click on the line between, you'll now notice that there are lines in between the columns. After you have that done, click on OK, and now you'll notice that the text is now formatted in 3 columns, and they have a line between each of the columns. On step 6, it tells us that we're going to click our zoom level button again, which it should say roughly somewhere between 114 and 182%. And we're going to go back and we want to click on the whole page on there. So you want to choose this one right here, the whole page. When you click on OK, it's going to show you the entire page on there. Of course, page 4 would probably look better if the 3 columns were balanced, each of the same width, because here we end up with the column right here and we got a whole bunch of white space right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make these all 3 even columns. To do that, we're also going to click on page 7, which is to place the insertion point at the end of the 3rd column, but before the final paragraph mark. So just right before that paragraph mark, right down here at the bottom, you're going to place your insertion point there. Go back up to your breaks. On the Page Layout tab, Page Setup Group, and we're going to click on Continuous. Now watch what happens to the text. All the text is now equal amongst all the 3 columns, and they're roughly the same length. Of course, if you want to fit more text on the screen, you can also hide the white space at the top and bottom of each page by moving the pointer between the page until it turns into a double-headed arrow pointing together. So if I would put this right up here, and you notice how my mouse pointer turns into this new icon that we haven't seen before, or to a new pointer, I should say. And when you double click that, it's going to remove the white space that's on there. Of course, you can also click on that line again between pages to make it come back up. Now, we're going to take a look, and we are going to look at step 8. And step 8 tells us we're going to scroll up so that we see page 3. So here's page 1, there's page 2, and here's page 3. It's the one with the little picture on here and the language and cultural immersion. It tells us that we're going to place the insertion point before the heading Luxurious Adventure Tunisia, which is right here. In that first column near the bottom, Luxurious Adventure Tunisia. And we're going to click on the Breaks button again, and this time we're going to add in a column break, which is up here on the Page Break section. So when we click on Column Break, notice that we have our column break inserted here, but then it moves all the text to the next column. And the page looks cleaner with the Tunisia article, which it does not break across the columns. That way, so all of this is all in on one side. Of course, if a section contains a column break, you cannot balance the columns by inserting a continuous section break. So where this column break is here, I can't balance these up by adding in a continuous section break down here at the bottom. Step 9 tells me I'm going to click on the View tab, and we're going to go to the 2 pages on here, and we're going to take a look at our document. So you can now take a look here on pages 3 and 4, how that has been divided up a little bit differently. The pages flowing a little bit differently on there compared to pages 1 and 2. And you can see how this document looks a little bit more professional and a little bit better than what we started out with. Of course, at times you may want to hyphenate your text on there, or work with hyphenating text. And hyphenating in a document is another way to control the flow of text in columns. Hyphens are the small dashes that break words that fall in the end of a line. Hyphenation diminishes the gaps between words in justified text and reduces ragged right edges in left-aligned text. If a document includes narrow columns, hyphenating the text can help give the page a cleaner look. To hyphenate a document automatically, you can click on the hyphenation button in the Page Setup group on the Page Layout tab and then click on Automatic. So here's this button right up here. There's the hyphenation. If I would click on that, notice it's already set to automatic, but you can set it to manual as well, or you can set on no hyphenation, which is none. We're going to leave it on automatic right now. And that concludes this video about formatting columns. You're ready to move on to the next video, which is inserting page numbers, and that's going to be on page Word 86.